4 people went to space. They came back alive. Everyone cheered. But nobody told you what really happened up there. The Artemis 2 mission did not come back with a victory. It came back with a warning. A terrifying truth that NASA, SpaceX, and every space agency in the world does not want to say out loud. And after reading this, you will understand exactly why this truth is so terrifying, and why you were never meant to hear it. For astronauts traveled farther from Earth than any human being in history. They looped around the far side of the moon. They came home safely. The news called it a triumph. But here is the terrifying truth nobody told you. The mission was designed to be as simple and as safe as possible. The path they flew, called a free return trajectory, meant that even if every engine, every computer, and every system on that spacecraft broke down completely, gravity itself would bring them home. The universe would return them to Earth automatically. That sounds beautiful. But think about what it actually means. It means NASA was so uncertain about the mission that they designed it so the laws of physics would do the saving, not the technology. It means the most advanced space program in human history flew a 10-day trip around the moon and deliberately avoided doing anything complicated. No landing. No docking. No testing of long-duration systems. Just fly out, loop around, and fly back. That is not a stepping stone to Mars. That is a program still learning how to walk. And if you look at what actually happened during those 10 days, not what the press releases said, but what the data showed, the picture becomes far more terrifying than anyone is ready to admit. Before Artemis 2 carried 4 human beings, NASA flew an unmanned test mission called Artemis 1. When that capsule splashed down and engineers examined the heat shield, they found something deeply alarming. More than 100 locations on the shield showed damage nobody had predicted. Pieces had broken away in ways the computer models said would not happen. The material designed to protect the crew from the 2,760-degree heat of re-entry, hot enough to melt steel, had behaved in ways nobody fully understood. NASA made 2 big changes before putting humans on board. They changed the re-entry path. And they changed the material of the heat shield itself. Both changes sound reasonable. But here is the terrifying truth. The new heat shield material, combined with the new re-entry path, had never been tested at lunar return speeds with a human crew on board. Not once. Not ever. The very first real test of this exact configuration was Artemis 2 itself, with 4 living human beings sitting behind it. It worked. And thank God it worked. But "it worked" is not the same as "we know why it worked." And "we know why it worked" is not the same as "we can guarantee it works again." One retired NASA engineer said this publicly and loudly for months before the mission. He was not wrong. Now here is the part that connects to Mars. A spacecraft coming back from Mars will hit Earth's atmosphere at 14 kilometers per second. Artemis 2 hit at 11. That sounds like a small difference. It is not. At those speeds, heat does not scale in a straight line. The radiative heating, the energy that comes from the superheated plasma cloud that forms in front of the spacecraft like a small star, increases with the 8th power of velocity. A 27% increase in speed produces roughly 8 times more heat. No heat shield has ever been designed for Mars return velocity with humans on board. No material we currently have has been proven to survive it. NASA's own internal documents call Mars re-entry a critical technology gap, meaning the technology does not exist yet and must be invented before any crewed Mars mission can proceed. Artemis 2 nearly failed its heat shield test at 11 kilometers per second. Mars needs 14. The terrifying truth is that we do not have the answer to that problem. We do not even have a working prototype. Here is something the news coverage barely mentioned. For 7 consecutive days of the 10-day Artemis 2 mission, the radiation alarms inside the Orion capsule never turned off. Not once. 7 straight days of continuous elevated radiation bombardment that no shield could fully block and no mission planner had confidently predicted. To understand why this is terrifying, you need to understand something about the place you live. You live inside a force field. Every single day of your life, an invisible magnetic bubble generated by molten iron churning deep inside the Earth has been protecting you from the radiation that fills space. This bubble, called the magnetosphere, stretches thousands of kilometers above you and deflects the constant stream of deadly particles pouring from the Sun and from distant exploding stars across the galaxy. The moment a spacecraft leaves that bubble, the protection is gone entirely. Artemis 2 spent 9 days outside that bubble. In those 9 days, the 4 crew members received a radiation dose equal to what a person standing on the surface of the Earth receives in an entire year. 1 day in deep space equaled 1 full year of normal background radiation. That ratio comes from 6 radiation sensors mounted throughout the capsule, measuring continuously throughout the entire mission. On day 8, the crew did something never done before in the history of human spaceflight. They built a radiation shelter. They stacked water containers and equipment bags around their sleeping area to create a physical barrier. Water absorbs radiation reasonably well. The shelter helped, a little. The dose rate inside was measurably lower than outside. This is the state of the art in deep space radiation protection in 2026. We build a fort out of luggage. And that fort does nothing against galactic cosmic rays, high-energy particles fired from exploding stars outside our solar system that carry enough energy to pass through meters of solid material. There is no shield light enough to launch into space that stops galactic cosmic rays. There is no medicine that protects your DNA from them in real time. There is no magnetic field generator small enough to mount on a spacecraft that deflects them. The terrifying truth is this. A Mars mission lasts 900 days. The total radiation dose for a round-trip Mars mission is estimated at approximately 1,000 millisieverts. NASA's career safety limit for astronauts is 600 millisieverts. A single trip to Mars and back would give every crew member more radiation than NASA considers acceptable for an entire career, and career limit already means a 3% increased risk of dying from cancer. At 1,000 millisieverts the risk rises to between 5 and 20% depending on the individual. 1 in 5. A 1 in 5 chance that the mission itself gives you a cancer that kills you. The European Space Agency has said clearly in published documents that a crewed Mars mission is not currently viable because of radiation alone. Not difficult. Not requiring more study. Not viable. Now here is the terrifying truth that should be taught in every school but almost nobody knows. In August of 1972, between the Apollo 16 and Apollo 17 missions, the Sun fired one of the most powerful bursts of radiation ever recorded in modern history. Scientists call it the August 1972 solar particle event. The dose that this burst would have delivered to an unprotected human being in deep space was approximately 26 sieverts. 5 sieverts kills a human being within weeks. At 26 sieverts, death comes within hours from massive destruction of bone marrow, collapse of the central nervous system, and failure of every organ in the body simultaneously. Apollo 16 returned to Earth in April 1972. Apollo 17 launched in December 1972. The August storm fell directly in the middle of that gap. If either mission had shifted by a few months, if Apollo 16 had gone up late, or if Apollo 17 had launched early, the crew would have been in deep space during the most lethal solar event of the 20th century. They would have died. All of them. With no warning, no shelter, no rescue, and nothing anyone on Earth could have done about it. That is not a hypothetical. That is recorded history separated from mass death by pure blind luck and calendar timing. Now apply this to Artemis 2. The same sun. The same physics. The same total unpredictability. During those 10 days, the sun threw moderate punches, a geomagnetic storm here, a medium solar flare there, but nothing close to the August 1972 event. The crew survived not because the technology protected them from that kind of event. They survived because the sun decided not to fire its biggest weapon during those particular 10 days. For a Mars mission lasting 900 days, scientists estimate the probability of encountering at least one severe solar particle event at between 15 and 25%. 1 in 4. Like rolling a four-sided die where one face means your crew receives a potentially lethal dose of radiation on a mission with no way to come home early. You cannot engineer luck. You cannot schedule around the sun. And the terrifying truth is that every crewed mission beyond Earth's magnetic protection is still gambling on the sun cooperating. Even if you solved radiation entirely, the human body itself becomes the next terrifying problem. Your body was built for one specific environment. One full gravity pulling you downward every second of every day. One atmosphere of air pressure surrounding you. A 24-hour cycle of light and dark. Without these conditions, the machine begins to break down in ways that no amount of willpower or exercise fully prevents. In microgravity, bones start losing density almost immediately. Without the constant mechanical pressure of gravity, every step, every moment of standing, every shift of your weight, the cells that break down bone begin to outpace the cells that build it. Astronauts lose roughly 1 to 1.5% of bone mineral density every month in space. Over a 6 to 9 month transit to Mars, that means losing 10 to 15% of bone density before even arriving. That is decades of age-related bone loss happening in months. Muscles waste away even with 2 or more hours of daily exercise, which astronauts on the International Space Station are required to do every single day. Despite that enormous effort, they still lose 20 to 30% of muscle mass on 6-month missions. The exercise slows the loss. It does not stop it. The heart weakens. In microgravity it does not have to work as hard, so over time it stops working as hard. When astronauts return to Earth, many cannot stand without dizziness because their cardiovascular systems have forgotten how to push blood upward against gravity. Then there is a problem discovered only recently that still has no solution. In microgravity, fluid normally held in the legs by gravity moves upward toward the head. This raises pressure inside the skull. That pressure pushes against the optic nerves and slowly reshapes the eyeballs. Some astronauts have returned from the space station with permanently damaged vision. Nobody fully understands why. Nobody has a reliable way to prevent it. On top of all of this, the immune system suppresses in space. Viruses that normally lie dormant in the body reactivate. Wounds heal more slowly. White blood cells function differently. Now consider what a Mars mission demands. 9 months of microgravity to get there. 500 days on the Martian surface at 38% of Earth's gravity, not enough to fully stop the biological deterioration. Then 9 more months of microgravity for the return journey. The crew arrives home after nearly 3 years of compounding physical damage that has no precedent in human history because nobody has ever been away from normal gravity conditions for that long. And all of this is happening on top of the radiation damage described above. Radiation damages DNA. Microgravity impairs the body's ability to repair it. These two effects do not simply add together. They make each other worse. The terrifying truth is that the human body is not built for this. That is not a metaphor. That is a statement of biological fact. Let us put every number together so the terrifying truth is completely clear. A round-trip mission to Mars using current technology looks like this. 6 to 9 months of travel from Earth to Mars. Approximately 500 days on the Martian surface waiting for the planets to align for a return trip. You cannot leave whenever you want because the orbital geometry only works every 26 months. Then 6 to 9 months of travel back to Earth. Total mission time, roughly 900 days. During the transit phases, the crew is in deep space with zero protection from Earth's magnetic field. During the surface stay, Mars provides some protection since the planet itself blocks radiation from below, but Mars has no magnetic field of its own and its atmosphere is less than 1% as thick as Earth's. It offers minimal overhead shielding. When you add up the full radiation dose, transit exposure plus surface exposure plus a reasonable allowance for 1 or 2 moderate solar events, the total estimated dose for a Mars round trip is approximately 1,000 millisieverts. That is nearly double NASA's career safety limit. That is 5 to 20% additional cancer risk on top of normal lifetime cancer risk. For some crew members, that means 1 in 5 odds that this mission gives them a cancer that eventually kills them. Now consider the heat shield. Current technology has been tested and barely validated for 11 km per second re-entry. Mars return requires 14. The heat load is 8 times greater. The technology does not exist. Consider the supply chain. A crew of 6 on a 900-day mission needs approximately 13,500 kilograms of food alone. Total consumables including water reserves, oxygen, medical supplies, and spare parts come to between 40 and 60 metric tons. And that is just what they eat, drink, and breathe, not the habitat, not the landers, not the power systems, not the surface equipment. A minimal crewed Mars mission requires multiple launches of the most powerful rocket ever built just to get the supplies there. Consider the fact that once the crew leaves, there is no resupply. No rescue. No early return. If something goes wrong 200 million kilometers from Earth, the crew solves it with whatever they brought, or they die. This is not pessimism. Every one of these numbers comes from scientific literature, NASA technical documents, and published assessments by space agencies around the world. The terrifying truth is that the math simply does not work with current technology. Not barely. Not almost. The gap is enormous. Here is the final terrifying truth that the Artemis 2 mission revealed, and that you were never truly meant to hear. We did not go to the moon after Apollo and come back stronger. We went away and forgot how hard it was. For 54 years we told ourselves that Mars was the next step, that the technology would come, that the problems would be solved. And when we finally flew humans back toward the moon in 2026, we discovered that we were further from ready than we had believed. The heat shield needed an emergency redesign that had never been tested with humans. The radiation environment was worse than the baseline models predicted. The sun threw moderate punches that the crew survived through luck as much as engineering. And all of this happened on a 10-day mission deliberately stripped of every complexity that a real deep space mission would require. A Mars mission is 900 days. Everything that was barely manageable for 10 days becomes catastrophic over 900. The radiation dose that was within career limits for 10 days exceeds career limits by 70% over the full mission. The heat shield that barely survived lunar return velocity would not survive Mars return velocity. The biological damage that astronauts recover from after 6 months in space compounds into unknown territory over 3 years. Artemis 2 did not show us the path to Mars. It showed us how far we still are from being able to survive the attempt. The terrifying truth is not that Mars is forever impossible. Some of these barriers may fall. Breakthroughs in radiation shielding, in heat shield materials, in propulsion that cuts travel time and therefore radiation exposure, in closed-loop life support systems, any of these could change the equation dramatically. The science is real. The effort is real. The people working on these problems are brilliant and dedicated. But the terrifying truth that nobody is ready to hear is this: those breakthroughs have not happened yet. The problems are not solved. The timelines being promised publicly are not supported by the data being produced privately. And every year that we pretend otherwise, every year that we frame a 10-day lunar flyby as a stepping stone to a 900-day Mars mission, is a year we spend telling a comfortable story instead of doing the honest, difficult, unglamorous work of actually solving the problems that stand between us and the red planet. Artemis 2 sent 4 human beings farther from Earth than anyone in history and brought them home safely. That is genuinely extraordinary. But what they brought back with them, the data, the radiation readings, the heat shield questions, the hard physical reality of what deep space actually does to technology and to human bodies, is a message that deserves to be heard clearly. We are not ready. Not yet. The terrifying truth the Artemis mission revealed is exactly that. And whether we are ready to hear it is the most important question in the history of human space exploration.